this week is ending with Donald Trump's first loss as president-elect. His first pick for attorney general dropping out Thursday. That's a key post where Trump had vowed a fight only to drop it. And now it's putting more heat on some other potentially problematic picks that face similar questions. Trump has prioritized the Justice Department more than any other division of government. And he picked firebrand Matt Gaetz, and that was seen as his true desire. He wanted a total warrior, but it was also very clearly this week a test of his power. He didn't consult the senators who have votes on the matter. Trump just acted and basically dared them to oppose him by claiming he might try to ice out their confirmation vote anyway with the recess appointment. And MAGA leaders spent the last week or two saying this was a preview of Trump's second term, an unbridled Trump who would mow down even Republican opposition or just route around it. And he would dare the Senate or the courts to then stop those recess appointments. In other words, let him get what he wants or he'll go around you anyway. And so here, as we take stock of the world as it really is, how did that go? It failed. Trump lost this first cabinet clash before this new Senate was even sworn in, let alone hearings for some of these nominees. There was a week of the tough headlines about both Trump and Gaetz, and now he ends this week with reports that you see here about the failure, the brutal reality check, that maybe he won't get his way on everything. Now, I can only tell you the facts as we get them. None of that dictates anything about the future of the whole Trump term or this Justice Department. It simply shows that these tests, as they were calling them, are tests for everyone. They work both ways. And that's typical for politics. Trump claimed he was testing the Senate. In fact, the Senate tested him, and it found his resolve to even wage this uphill battle did not extend 2 weeks. And we are working in a field where you need a lot more than weeks of resolve. He couldn't go 2 weeks, let alone the 7 weeks left until the Senate's even, well, holding these hearings, until Donald Trump is sworn in, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I will tell you, Trump has famously cozied up to many different people in public life, including rapper 50 Cent. But we can end the week with this fact. Donald Trump broke the 50 Cent maxim, where he said, quote, "It's easy to see when you look at me. If you look closely, 50 don't back down." Well, Trump do back down. And Washington politicians also know something that has become clear when you put aside the bluster and the spin. Donald Trump's margin of victory that we saw this month is one of the smallest margins in the modern era. If you take the 3 elections he's had, you see them there very simply. Trump's current winning margin, about 1.6%, is far smaller, less than half of Biden's margin in 2020. So what you see there is the Trump win, 1.6, the Trump loss in 20, 4.4, and the margin in 2016 was 2%. In other words, Hillary Clinton had a better margin. She got more total votes than Donald Trump when he won the Electoral College in 2016. These facts are driving the stories that are, frankly, more sober than the first few days of the reaction to the comeback of Donald Trump early this month. New York Times has a big piece today that notes the narrow win was the landslide that wasn't. Trump had one of the, quote, smallest margins of victory in the popular vote since the 19th century. So, against that backdrop, Trump has now rushed out his new AG pick, someone he knows better than Matt Gaetz, that is Pam Bondi. And she is an aggressive MAGA ally. She certainly talks tough and has tough political rhetoric. She is different than Gaetz, though. Bondi served as the attorney general of a big state, just as Kamala Harris did. And so Trump now tapping the Florida former AG, who brings more experience than someone like Gaetz. On paper, as I mentioned when the news broke last night, this is the kind of resume more familiar to presidents in past cycles in both parties. You bring someone who either has a lot of federal DOJ experience, or you bring someone who's risen pretty high in a state or even to the top law enforcement job of a state AG. And this is a big state. There's just more work and more experience there than, say, Idaho. So if you stop there, that's a stride. And for Donald Trump, that would be a positive. Certainly in the eyes of the Senate, a positive compared to the first AG nominee who's now out. But Bondi also went farther than many similarly situated legal officials, especially in her time since leaving office, to echo Donald Trump's language, lies about elections and abusing government power.
We do have evidence of cheating, and I'll talk about that in a minute.
The Department of Justice, the prosecutors will be prosecuted.
We are not going anywhere until they declare that we won Pennsylvania.
The investigators will be investigated.
We've won Pennsylvania. These fake ballots that are coming in late.
Pam, did you just say fake ballots?
There could be. That's the problem.
Even Fox News has to kind of ask at least the follow-up question. Did you say fake ballots? Do you have evidence of that? Are you lying about fake ballots and election fraud? And you heard her sort of measure up there. She went from fake ballots to there could be. That's a quick change to what the actual truth is, and it's my job to fact-check it for you. There were no fake ballots or stolen election fraud in Pennsylvania. Indeed, the difference between how some of those Trump allies have sounded and the factual community is we follow the ballots no matter where they lead. So, for example, Trump won Pennsylvania this year, fair and square. You didn't hear as much talk about fake ballots. Bondi was there on the side, pushing that misinformation in a cycle where he had lost Pennsylvania. The DOJ clash also reinforces how the Senate can stop other nominees before they even get to hearings, especially if Republicans think those hearings will be a bad thing for the whole party and not just Donald Trump. There are concerns about the largely unvetted intel and defense picks that Trump has made. One Republican already warning against the intel pick based on insufficient support for Ukraine, which will remain a big issue. Republicans are also asking if the Pentagon pick will bring the kind of heat that Gates did. Pete Hegseth faces allegations of a 2017 sexual assault. Donald Trump's team says they're blindsided by that sexual assault allegation. The Wall Street Journal reporting that. But I want to tell you something. That's more of an admission than an explanation, because Trump's team is refusing to sign the standard transition agreements or submit its nominees to FBI background checks. That is an extraordinary choice, and one that makes the nomination process riskier politically for the Trump folks, riskier for the Senate to deal with it, but also riskier for potentially the United States. It could leave more top officials subject to blackmail or very big surprises later if you learn these things after they're confirmed, and national security concerns. And the Pentagon pick has a second Gates-style problem relating to D.C. relationships. He's attacked some of the Republican senators he now needs to get confirmed.
This is a swamp budget. This is a Mitch McConnell special.
100%. Lisa Murkowski's been voting with Democrats for a long time, more than she's voted with Republicans. Her and Susan Collins, they can basically have them taking on Mitch McConnell. Until there's new leadership of that Senate conference, it's not going to change. The priorities aren't going to change.
Now, I've told you before, people have every right to share their views, their First Amendment rights, even extreme positions. That's why Pam Bondi could say what she said in public life, which is different than saying that in court, where some of those claims might have been illegal, might have been perjury. Mr. Hegseth, just like Mr. Gates, can clearly express his views of the Senate Republicans. And as I mentioned in my coverage earlier this week, if the only thing were attacking the establishment of either party, well, that's plenty popular around the country for good reason. But you stack all these things up along with this really dangerous choice not to even vet the people going into government. And you have to ask, 2 weeks in, how this small margin pseudo mandate is going.